You think you know how Yu Menglong, the most powerful man in the financial district, died? You're wrong. The official reports say a sudden stroke, a massive heart attack, lies crafted to protect secrets so deep, they could shatter the modern world. But 1 hour before his body was found, Yu Menglong, cloaked and paranoid, didn't call his lawyer or his doctor. He met the Weaver in a blacked-out penthouse, not to sign a deal, but to exchange a single, chilling phrase and a small, antique music box. This meeting wasn't about money, it was about the impossible truth of his own lineage, a truth that made him the target of a hidden society operating above global governance. We have the transcript of those final, mind-blowing moments, including the unbelievable revelation that links Menglong's death not to rivals, but to a 400-year-old temporal paradox. Stick around, because by the time this story ends, you will know exactly who killed him, why the news lied, and the cosmic secret he died protecting. The rain was not falling, it was assaulting the city. It struck the 70th floor window of the empty industrial loft like handfuls of gravel, insulating the room in a raw cocoon of sound. Yu Menglong, usually impeccable in a hand-stitched suit, wore only a dark, unbranded cashmere overcoat and stood with his back to the sweeping view of Neo-Shanghai. He looked less like the titan of industry and more like a man waiting for a firing squad. His hands were tucked deep into his pockets, one of them gripping the smooth, cold brass of the object that had plagued his waking life for 2 decades, the sinister music box. The air in the loft was thick with ozone and the scent of expensive, stale fear. Precisely at 1:17 a.m., a time chosen for its prime number secrecy, a faint, almost imperceptible click came from the single steel door behind him. Menglong didn't turn, but his shoulders visibly tightened. He knew the protocol. The door slid open just enough for a figure to slip through, then hissed shut, the locks resetting in a sequence so complex it could only be defeated by a quantum key. The newcomer wore clothes that seemed to absorb the minimal ambient light, a shadow-made material. This was the Weaver. No one knew the Weaver's real name, gender, or allegiance, only that they were the sole conduit between Menglong and the ancient order known only as the Chronos Guild. "You're late." Menglong's voice was a low rasp, stripped of its usual commanding resonance. "Time is subjective, Menglong. You, of all people, should know that," the Weaver replied, their voice a synthesized monotone, genderless and flat, echoing slightly off the concrete walls. "Did you bring it?" Menglong finally turned, his face a roadmap of stress lines etched deep by sleepless nights and impossible knowledge. He pulled his right hand from his pocket, revealing the sinister music box. It was small, no bigger than a cigarette packet, wrought in tarnished brass and carved with spirals that didn't obey any known geometric law. They seemed to twist inward to an impossible vanishing point. "I brought the physical shell. But you know the contents are useless now. The resonance is gone." The Weaver stepped forward, finally allowing their silhouette to be briefly caught by a flash of distant lightning. They held out a single, gloved hand, not to take the box, but to gesture to the wall. "The resonance is merely dispersed. That's why we require the locus phase array coordinates. We need to pinpoint the moment of the fracture." Menglong scoffed, a dry, bitter sound. "The fracture happened 400 years ago, Weaver. It wasn't a mistake, it was an act of malicious, premeditated temporal sabotage. My ancestor, Yu Xiong, didn't lose the first key, he sent it. He didn't just alter the timeline, he split it, creating the very paradox that keeps us from existing in the reality we were meant to inherit. This was the core secret, the mind-blowing truth that made the global economy seem like a children's game. Yu Menglong wasn't just rich, he was the last known descendant of the original keeper of the temporal key, the artifact that anchored their current reality. The Weaver and the Chronos Guild weren't seeking wealth, they were trying to stitch reality back together. Yu Xiong's rationale is irrelevant now. Only the stability of the now thread matters, the Weaver insisted. "The coordinates, Menglong. You found the encrypted notation in the base structure of your company's original charter. Tell me where the array is, and this whole charade ends. You can retire. We'll stabilize the loop, and your death, which is currently scheduled for 2:17 a.m. "Don't finish that sentence," Menglong snarled, gripping the box so hard his knuckles turned white. "I am aware of the temporal prediction. That's why I came. But you don't understand the cost. If you activate the locus array using this box, you don't fix the paradox. You merely transfer the fracture to a new anchor point. A weaker one. Me. My death is the price of your temporary stability, not the solution. The Weaver remained utterly impassive. The Guild determined a 0.003% variance in the stability quotient. An acceptable cost to prevent timeline collapse. And you think I care about your quotient? Menglong took a quick, frantic step toward the window, the rain momentarily drawing his attention. He saw not the lights of the city, but the endless, churning darkness beyond. They sent me a message today. Not the Guild, Weaver. The echoes. They whispered the original truth to me. Yu Xiong didn't split the timeline to save himself. He split it to stop you. He saw what the Chronos Guild would become, not protectors of time, but its absolute, totalitarian masters, rewriting history to remove all inconvenient variables like true free will. Menglong thrust the cynosure music box into the Weaver's chest. The Weaver's hand snapped up, the synthetic glove making a sound like dry leather catching the brass. The array coordinates. Now, Menglong. Or the 2:17 a.m. prediction accelerates to now. You won't find the array in this reality, Weaver, Menglong whispered, leaning in, his face close enough that the Weaver should have reacted to the contact. Forget slow introductions. We're diving straight into the final, frantic hour of a legend. This is the untold story of the Knight General Yu Menglong, the man who shaped an empire's destiny, sealed his own death warrant. In the next few minutes, we'll take you inside the claustrophobic, incense-choked room where he met the one person who knew his deepest secret and who ultimately ended him. We have painstakingly pieced together the scene, the hidden agenda, the priceless artifact exchanged, and the chilling final words that confirm a political conspiracy spanning decades. Stick around, because what was said in those final, desperate 60 minutes didn't just kill a man, it ripped open the very foundation of the Celestial Court. This meeting changed history, and we're showing you every mind-blowing detail right now. The observatory tower was the wrong choice. Yu Menglong knew it the second his shadow stretched long and distorted across the dust-caked floor of the uppermost chamber. It was too exposed, too close to the ancient, skeletal astronomical instruments that seemed to whisper the secrets of dead emperors to the silent, watching stars. But the location, despite its inherent risk, spoke to the magnitude of the exchange. He stood where the imperial astronomers once measured the mandate of heaven, now, he was here to forfeit his own. The meeting was set for the deepest hour of the rat, 1 a.m. He was early, which was unusual for him, but paranoia had become his most punctual attendant. He was 36, yet the weight of his rank, Grand Marshal of the Northern Guard, Privy Councillor to the Emperor, had etched lines of permanent exhaustion around eyes that had seen too much war and too many betrayals. The air in the stone room was cold, carrying a faint scent of burnt sandalwood and something metallic, like old bronze or fresh blood. He adjusted the silk collar of his plain, unadorned midnight blue robe. It was an exercise in forced calm. His personal guard, Luo, was positioned 3 floors down, sworn to silence and ignorance. That was the first risk. The second, and far greater, was the person he was waiting for, the ghost eel, a confidant, a master spy, and a man who had not shown his true face to Yu Menglong in 15 years. A slight, almost imperceptible sound of stone scraping stone was the only warning. It wasn't the door. It was the ventilation shaft hidden behind a sliding celestial map, a method they hadn't used since the failed Taiping coup a decade prior. Yu Menglong didn't move, his hand resting casually on the hilt of his ceremonial dagger, a blade that, ironically, had never seen battle but was guaranteed to pierce the thickest court silks. A figure, slim and draped entirely in the mottled grey of night shadows, flowed into the room. It was not the ghost eel. It was his daughter, Mai. Her presence here was the first mind-blowing scene of the night, a violation of every protocol. Mai was supposed to be 1,000 miles away, guarding the southern supply lines. Her face, usually serene and masked by professional indifference, was pale, strained, and marked by a single, fresh, jagged scar just below her left eye, a silent testament to a recent, brutal confrontation. "Father," she breathed, her voice a rough whisper. It shattered the oppressive silence of the tower. My. You should not be here, Yu Menglong said, his voice flat, but the subtle tightening of his jaw revealed a deep, cold fear. The risk is catastrophic. Does the ghosteel know you've come? Mai shook her head, moving with the preternatural quietness of a seasoned infiltrator, closing the ventilation panel so meticulously that the stone patterns realigned perfectly. He is delayed. Intercepted. Father, the timeline has shifted. What you plan to exchange tonight, the scroll of silent edict, they already know it exists. And they know where it has been hidden for the last 3 months. This was the first true shock. The scroll of silent edict was the core of the entire conspiracy, a document detailing the emperor's secret agreement with the barbarian tribes to the west, a document that, if revealed, would plunge the capital into immediate civil war. Yu Menglong's plan was to exchange the scroll for a guaranteed pathway into exile, sacrificing the empire's stability for his family's safety. But if the enemy already knew about it, the meeting was no longer a negotiation. It was an ambush dressed as a transaction. How? Yu Menglong demanded, his hand gripping the dagger hilt hard enough to whiten his knuckles. Only 3 people knew the location, and 2 are in this room. Mai stepped closer, the metallic scent in the air strengthening as she approached. I followed the trail from the south. It wasn't surveillance, Father. It was foreknowledge. The scroll of silent edict is not merely an object, it is a key. It unlocks a much older secret that ties the entire imperial line back to the exiled eastern clans. They didn't just find its location, they interpreted its destiny. The second, deeper revelation hit Yu Menglong like a physical blow. Destiny. He had spent his life scoffing at the superstitions that guided the celestial court, yet here his daughter was speaking of fate. He pulled open the breast of his robe, revealing a shallow, internal pocket. From it, he retrieved a small, unassuming block of dark jade, no bigger than his thumb. It was impossibly heavy, and its surface was cold to the touch, colder than the deepest winter ice, a perfect thermal anomaly in the slightly warm tower air. This was not the scroll itself, but the cipher that proved its authenticity, the true seal. This is what I was to trade, he said, presenting the jade. The ghosteel promised the price was acceptable. Now, tell me the truth. Is this seal compromised? Mai didn't touch the jade. Her gaze was fixed on the shifting, hypnotic pattern of the constellations painted on the ceiling, illuminated faintly by the sliver of moonlight filtering through the broken glass of a spyglass mount. The seal itself is pure. But the scroll's text, Father, the ghosteel was not coming to bargain. He was coming to deliver a warning. A sound, louder this time, dragged their attention back to the reality of the room. A slow, rhythmic tick-tock that wasn't the wind, wasn't the ancient machinery, but something newly placed. It was coming from the floorboards directly beneath the large bronze astronomical sphere in the center of the chamber. This was the third mind-blowing scene, the confirmation of the ambush. They weren't just spied on, they were trapped.